Have you ever walked into a room and felt the urge to prove yourself, to speak just to be seen, yet left feeling unnoticed or drained? In a world that rewards noise, few understand the quiet power of doing nothing. But what if the most effective way to command respect? Reveal truth. And outsmart anyone was through silence itself. This is not about hiding. It is about mastering presence without performance. Stay with me, and you will discover the ancient Stoic art of winning without a single word. Let the silence speak. Let the truth unfold. In silence, they show themselves. There is a reason the Stoics rarely rushed to speak. In silence, you see what noise tries to hide. The moment you choose to stay quiet, the world around you begins to unfold in ways you never imagined. People start filling in the gaps. They speak longer, they reveal more, and in their rush to be heard, they expose what they were trying so hard to conceal: their insecurities, their motives, their weaknesses. While most people use conversation as a stage, the wise use silence as a mirror. You are not avoiding interaction, you are studying behavior. You are not losing ground, you are gaining insight. The art of silence is not passivity, it is psychological precision. Imagine being in a room with someone who's trying to impress, dominate, or manipulate. They talk endlessly, weaving their narrative, throwing in justifications, hoping to lead your thoughts in a certain direction. And yet, you remain silent, present, unshaken. In just a few minutes, they begin to overexpose themselves. They sense a lack of control and fill the silence with assumptions. That's when the power shifts. You no longer need to confront or challenge. They unravel by their own hand. You become the canvas onto which they project their truths, not knowing they are giving you everything you need without even being asked. This is why Stoic thinkers like Epictetus urged restraint in speech. Because true intelligence does not boast. True power does not announce itself. It watches, it listens, it gathers. When you stay quiet, you are not disengaged. You are deeply engaged with a different kind of awareness. You are seeing what lies beneath the words, the tone, the inconsistencies, the desperation to be understood, validated, or admired. You pick up patterns, micro-expressions, and contradictions that are only visible when you are no longer distracted by your own need to speak. In this way, silence becomes your strategy. It is not a retreat. It is a stance, a way of holding your ground without needing to fight, like a seasoned warrior who surveys the battlefield before making a move. You use silence as a means of seeing clearly, not reacting blindly. When you speak too quickly, you give away your position. When you listen deeply, you discover theirs. Let them speak. Let them get louder. Let them believe they are in control. You are not in a hurry. You are not trying to win the moment. You are playing for the long game, the game of understanding, influence, and timing. Those who speak without thinking often lose without knowing, but those who wait, who watch, who remain composed, they hold the ultimate advantage at the end of the day. You do not outsmart others by overpowering them. You outsmart them by allowing them to show you who they are. And that revelation begins not when you raise your voice, but when you choose to say nothing at all. That is when their mask slips. That is when their truth walks into the room. And that is when your silence becomes the loudest answer they never expected. The power hidden in a simple pause. In a world that never stops speaking, the person who knows when to pause becomes a force of nature. Most people respond out of habit, out of fear, out of the need to be heard. But those who pause, even for a breath, shift the entire energy of a conversation. A pause is not a weakness. It is not hesitation. It is a deliberate act of presence. It tells the world you are not controlled by impulse. You are not rushing to prove yourself. You are here, fully aware and fully in command of your words. The Stoics understood this long before psychology gave it a name. To them, the pause was sacred. It was the space between stimulus and response where wisdom could live. Marcus Aurelius did not rush into judgment. He paused, reflected, and then decided. In those moments of silence, he reclaimed his authority over emotion. In our own lives, the same principle applies. Whether you are being questioned, insulted, or even praised, a pause allows you to choose your response instead of becoming a slave to reaction. Picture a heated conversation. One person is talking fast, raising their voice, trying to corner you with rapid accusations or questions. The natural instinct is to defend, to interrupt, to match their intensity, but the Stoic in you resists that temptation. You take a breath, you look at them calmly, you say nothing, not yet. That moment of silence, even if just a few seconds, becomes unbearable for them. They grow more anxious, more desperate to pull you into their emotional chaos. But you stay still. And now, without saying a word, you have already won the first battle. You control the tempo. You control the tone. This is not manipulation. It is mastery. The pause forces clarity. It slows down time. It allows both sides to reflect, but only one side uses it wisely. The Stoic. You see, the world respects those who speak with intention. And when you pause, you are telling everyone in the room that your words are not careless. You are not speaking just to fill the air. You are speaking because you have something worth saying. I remember a mentor who used silence like a weapon in boardrooms, in conflicts, even in casual conversation. He would pause before responding to anything. Not long, just long enough to make people lean forward. And when he spoke, his words landed like stone, not because they were loud, but because they came from a place of control. You could feel the weight of thought behind every sentence, and people respected him for that. They didn't interrupt, they didn't rush him, because they knew that when he did speak, it mattered. You do not need to speak faster to be heard. You do not need to react quickly to be strong. You need to pause, to breathe, to see. The pause is your moment of power. It is where emotion is filtered and truth is refined. In that space between what they say and how you respond, you become untouchable, not because you dominate, but because you remain undisturbed. At the end of the day, silence within a sentence is as powerful as silence within a soul. So the next time you feel the urge to respond instantly, remember this. A single pause can shift the outcome. A pause is not a delay. It is a demonstration of mastery. Speak slowly, think deeply, move intentionally. That is how the Stoic wins in silence. Loud voices always collapse under calm eyes. There is a silent elegance in not matching someone's chaos. When a person tries to dominate through noise, when they raise their voice to assert control or to hide insecurity, you do not need to meet them where they stand. You rise by not lowering yourself. The one who yells is often the one who feels unheard within. The one who tries to overpower with volume is rarely the one in power. And the one who remains composed, who lets the loudness echo into nothing, always holds the real authority in the room. The Stoics never taught us to argue with storms. They taught us to become the mountain that outlasts them. When someone rants, insults, or tries to provoke, your silence becomes the most powerful response. It is not silence of fear. It is silence of discipline. It says you will not be moved by emotional theatrics. You will not trade your peace for temporary validation. You will not descend into the same frequency as those who have already lost control. Imagine a heated confrontation. One person is pounding the table, pointing fingers, demanding attention. Their words are sharp, their energy frantic. They want to shake you, they want to pull you in. But you look at them, breathe, and say nothing. Maybe you nod. Maybe you simply hold their gaze. You do not flinch, and slowly, something shifts. Their words begin to sound hollow. Their anger starts to look absurd. Because in the presence of calm, chaos reveals itself for what it really is: weakness in disguise. This is not about pride. It is about principle. When you remain still while others unravel, you become the mirror they cannot bear to look into. They see their loss of control reflected back at them. They see that their words cannot penetrate you. And in that realization, they begin to lose the crowd they thought they controlled. People do not admire noise. They admire restraint. They admire the one who does not need to shout to be heard, the one who speaks when necessary and is silent when it counts. There was once a Stoic general who walked calmly through a mob of angry men, all of them shouting threats and accusations. He said nothing. He did not try to explain or argue. He simply walked through them as if their words were wind. Later, when asked how he managed to remain so composed, he said, "I saw no value in responding to noise. I only speak when I believe it will move the world forward." That is the kind of power silence gives you. Not just control over others, but mastery over yourself. When others get loud, let them. When they try to pull you into disorder, remain still. When they expect a reaction, give them none. Because the moment you engage in their chaos, you lose the clarity that keeps you strong. Let their loudness be their downfall. Let their drama be their undoing. And when the dust settles, when the shouting fades into silence, you will still be standing, calm, clear, untouched. At the end of the day, the most powerful person in the room is not the one who shouts the loudest, but the one who never needed to shout at all. That is the essence of Stoic strength. It is not loud, it is unshakable, and that is why it wins. When you stop paying attention, you become untouchable. There is a form of silence far more powerful than withholding speech. It is the silence of withdrawal. Not just from the conversation, but from the entire space of engagement. The Stoics understood this deeply. They knew that true strength is not found in retaliating against disrespect, but in refusing to offer your presence to it. Words can be ignored, but the absence of your energy, your focus, your presence, that is felt in a far deeper way. It is not passive, it is purposeful. It sends a clear message that you are no longer available to be used, provoked, or disrespected. When someone crosses a line, many people feel compelled to explain, defend, or correct. But not the Stoic. The Stoic does not waste precious energy arguing with disrespect. He does not plead to be seen correctly. He does not stay in places where his value is questioned. He simply steps back, without fanfare, without warning, and lets his silence say everything. To remove your attention is to reclaim your power. It is to say, "I will not pour into what depletes me. I will not remain where dignity is absent." Imagine someone who thrives on triggering you. They poke, they provoke, they push, they want a reaction. Because your reaction feeds their illusion of control. But what happens when you no longer respond? What happens when you no longer even look their way? The oxygen they depend on begins to vanish. Your silence becomes more painful than any comeback. They are left to sit with themselves, and that discomfort is louder than anything you could say. You do not punish them with cruelty, you punish them with nothing, and in that nothingness, they face the truth of who they are without your presence to reflect against. This is not cruelty. It is clarity. It is the decision to no longer invest your attention where it yields no return. When you stop explaining yourself to people who have already chosen not to understand you, you regain a part of yourself that was being chipped away with every forced conversation. You realize that walking away is not weakness. it is wisdom. And that absence is often the most eloquent expression of self-respect. I remember once being in a situation where someone constantly challenged me, misrepresented me, and sought to bait me into constant confrontation. For a while, I tried to clarify, I tried to reason, until one day, I stopped, not out of defeat, but out of realization. I stopped responding. I stopped engaging. I gave no more explanation. I redirected my attention toward what nourished me, and the moment I did, the chaos fell silent. They lost their grip. Because the game only works when you keep playing it. The moment you step away, it collapses. To withdraw attention is to protect your peace. It is to let others feel the emptiness that remains when you take your energy elsewhere. And if they ever wonder why, let them sit with that silence. The Stoic does not seek to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding. He simply exits the room, he reclaims his time, he disappears from the battlefield and lets his absence become the loudest statement. At the end of the day, silence is not just what you say, it is what you no longer give. And when you master the art of disengagement, you realize the most powerful words are often the ones never spoken. That is not retreat. That is liberation. And that is where your quiet victory begins. Stillness is the signature of true power. There is a kind of presence that speaks louder than any voice. It does not enter a room with noise. It does not demand applause. It does not announce itself with movement or force. It is stillness. And when practiced with intention, that stillness becomes a force of nature. The Stoics understood this well. They knew that a man who does not need to prove himself has already proven everything. True power is not loud, it is not desperate, it is silent, calm, and deeply grounded in self-mastery. When you walk into a room without trying to impress, something unexpected happens. People notice you more, not because of what you do, but because of what you do not do. You do not scramble to be liked. You do not interrupt to be heard. You do not perform to be seen. Instead, you carry yourself with quiet authority. Your posture is straight. Your gaze is steady. Your breathing is unhurried. You become a presence that others cannot quite explain but instinctively respect. That is stillness in action, and it is far more effective than any attempt to dominate or impress. In a world obsessed with visibility, with constant motion and performance, stillness becomes a rare signal, and rarity commands attention. When you do not chase attention, you become the one people gravitate toward. When you do not reveal too much, they wonder more. And when you are silent, yet composed, others begin to adjust themselves around your energy. They slow their speech. They become more careful, because they sense that you are not here to compete. You are here to observe, to decide, and to lead on your own terms. I once observed a man walk into a high-stakes meeting. He said nothing for the first 20 minutes. He sat with a calm expression, eyes thoughtful, hands relaxed. Others spoke quickly, filling the room with strategies and opinions. But when he finally spoke, everyone stopped to listen. It was not the volume of his words that created authority. It was the weight of his presence, because his stillness signaled something greater. He was not reacting. He was thinking. He was not trying to win attention. He had already earned it. That is the kind of impression stillness leaves behind. To the Stoic, stillness is not inaction. It is control. It is the discipline to hold your ground without needing to prove you belong. It is the refusal to be swayed by external chaos. It's the confidence to let your presence carry what your words do not need to explain. Your stillness becomes a message, a quiet declaration that you know who you are, and you are not here to beg for validation. This level of composure does not come from arrogance. It comes from clarity, from knowing that your worth does not depend on how much you are seen, but on how deeply you are rooted in yourself. Stillness does not need applause. It does not need noise. It simply is. And that is why it is so powerful. So the next time you enter a room, do not rush to speak. Do not overextend to prove. Let your stillness lead. Let your calm presence unsettle the noise. And remember, the most commanding force is often the one that moves the least. Not because it lacks power, but because it holds too much of it to waste. In the end, the Stoic does not use stillness to hide. He uses it to reveal the kind of strength that cannot be faked. And that is the kind of presence the world never forgets. Let mystery make you unforgettable. There is a hidden power in leaving things unsaid. The less you reveal, the more others wonder. When you hold back your thoughts, your plans, your emotions, people begin to fill in the blanks, and what they imagine is often more powerful than anything you could have said. This is the paradox of silence. It invites curiosity, it creates mystery, and mystery has always been a source of influence. The Stoic does not overshare. He does not explain himself to those who are not ready to understand. He lets silence create its own gravity. In any social setting, the person who speaks the least often becomes the one most discussed, not because they impressed with loudness, but because they left space for intrigue. When you do not reveal your motives, people begin to project their own. They assume, they speculate, they analyze, and in doing so, they reveal more about themselves than they ever learn about you. This is the power of controlled absence. The less you offer, the more valuable your presence becomes. Consider how many people fear the unknown. In battle, what is unseen is feared most. In life, the same principle applies. When people cannot predict you, they cannot control you, and when they cannot control you, they become uneasy. Your silence keeps you one step ahead. While they try to decode your meaning, you are free to observe, to adapt, to strike with precision only when necessary. You become a master of timing because you're not distracted by the need to explain yourself. I once knew a man who always left conversations unfinished, not out of disrespect, but out of intention. He would offer just enough insight to spark interest, then withdraw. People remembered his words long after he had gone. They repeated his phrases, quoted his lines, speculated about what he truly meant. And in that space of uncertainty, his influence grew. He was not louder than others, but he was remembered more. Because he understood that silence, when used with wisdom, speaks forever. The Stoic knows that influence is not about dominating the room. It is about shaping the atmosphere with presence and restraint. When others clamor for attention, the Stoic remains composed. When others seek to be understood at all costs, the Stoic remains content with being a question mark, because in that question lies power, in that silence lies freedom. So let them wonder, let them assume, let them talk. While they circle around your mystery, you walk in purpose. You do not need to correct their perceptions. You only need to remain aligned with your truth. That is how legends are made, not by revealing everything, but by mastering the discipline to keep the most powerful parts of you unknown. And in doing so, you do not lose control. You become untouchable. Say nothing, and let the world feel it. There will always be moments when people try to provoke you. They insult, mock, or push you, hoping to trigger a reaction. It is their way of feeling powerful. But when you say nothing, when you meet their noise with complete stillness, you break the game they are playing. The moment you refuse to respond is the moment you take back control, because silence in the face of provocation is not weakness. It is precision. It is the highest form of self-possession. To the Stoic, every conflict is an invitation to lose composure, and every refusal to engage is a step toward mastery. When someone expects anger, and instead receives calm, it disrupts their plan. It forces them to confront their own emptiness. you become unreadable, and what cannot be read cannot be manipulated. This is not avoidance, it is redirection. You do not waste energy proving yourself to those who never came to understand you. You rise above the game entirely. I remember a situation where a colleague insulted another during a public meeting. Everyone expected a sharp reply, a defense, a confrontation, but the one who was insulted simply looked at him, paused, and continued without a word. No defense, no reaction. The room shifted, the power shifted, and the one who stayed silent walked out with twice the respect, because in that moment, he showed that no one can humiliate you unless you let them. That is the strength of restraint. The Stoic knows that the best response to certain attacks is no response at all, not because he is afraid, but because he understands that peace is worth more than pride. Every time you choose silence over outrage, you protect your energy, you protect your clarity, you remain in control, and in that control lies the quiet victory. So when the moment comes and they expect you to break, do not speak, do not defend, do not entertain the bait, just stand in your truth and let your silence do the speaking. In the end, the loudest thing you can say is nothing at all. That is how you win, not by fighting every battle, but by choosing the ones that truly matter. And often, the most powerful battle is the one you never have to fight. When the world pulls you to react, to speak just to be seen, remember this: your silence is not emptiness, it is awareness, it is intention, it is power held, not lost. You do not need to raise your voice to be respected. You do not need to explain yourself to be understood. True strength moves without noise. It listens, it observes, and when the moment is right, it speaks with precision, not desperation. If today's message reminded you of your own quiet strength, let it stay with you. Let it shape how you walk into the next room, how you hold your ground without forcing it, how you outgrow the need to prove. Because mastery begins not with dominance, but with self-command. Let others shout, you remain calm. Let others perform, you remain present. The ones who win without a word are often the ones remembered the longest. If you found value in this message, feel free to subscribe so you never miss another step on this journey. And if this spoke to something within you, leave a comment below with just 3 words: silent but powerful. In your silence, you are building something unshakable. And in the next video, we will go even deeper into how quiet strength bends the world in your favor. Until then, walk with presence. Speak with purpose, and never forget what silence can teach you.